2 of The Day of the Jackal book club. Content heavy.
Let's go. Let's talk about it.
We finished the first part, Anatomy of a Plot. How do you want to start this? Do you want me to go through the plot again? What's happened since we last talked?
Yes.
Or do you want to do it this time?
I'll do a quick plot sum for the people.
All right.
Let's see. We've got our Jackal.
Mm-hmm.
He's zip-zapping around. He's getting his gun. He's getting his various documents. Couple of hiccups, of course.
It's fake kids.
He gets his gun. Something's not ready. I don't remember what. Doesn't matter. He gets the main part of the gun, and he goes and shoots some stuff. It works great. He gets the documents.
Dials in the gun.
He dials in the gun. He does the knobs. He does the things. He gets his docs. Guy tries to blackmail him.
Ooh,
Something
big
you
mistake.
should not do. He kills him.
Yeah. Puts him in a crate. Puts him in a box.
Nice meals, and then off to France.
And I mean, you skipped a huge part
For the Jackal?
I see
In
you're doing
parallel.
You're going part by part. Got it. I'm with you.
In parallel, our giant Pollock friend, the bodyguard, Special K, Officer K,
Kowalski.
we find out he's got a secret love child with a prostitute.
Yep,
France finds this out,
they do.
and they tell him secretly, covertly, that kid has Luke something. He
Which is
freaks
how
out.
they put it several times.
He
Because
does-
Kowalski not smart,
no.
not book smart.
So secretly, he runs off back to Marseille to try and say goodbye to his love child daughter before Luke something takes her to an early grave. Of course, France is there waiting for him. They capture him, not without a fight. He gets a little knocked up. He does get interrogated one time. He gives up what little he knows of the plot, which is enough for them to sort of sink their teeth into something. And now they know that the Jackal is out there on some sort of secret mission, which they intuit to be the assassination attempt of de Gaulle, because they tried it a bunch already.
They intuit that there's a blonde who's a killer
Codename the Jackal.
named the Jackal.
And what is the target? They intuit that to be, of course, CDG. Again, based on the 6 other times these guys, real Wile E. Coyote type of energy from these guys. They're trying so hard.
They bring up several times he does not like to hide from the fact, and he doesn't like to have his privacy interrupted.
Yeah, we meet with CDG. He says, sorry, you can't do anything different. Go find the guy. I don't care how you do it.
Go find the guy, but don't let anybody know you're looking for the guy.
I'm not doing anything different.
Yeah, I'm going to go live my life.
Oh, and then at the end, they're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And they say, well, we're going to need a detective. Luckily, I know a guy.
The best detective you have.
And it ends Claude
Commissaire Claude Lebel. Deputy Commissaire. Best detective is what I wrote down for my notes. So
that's the plot sum.
that is a good plot sum. First, let me talk about, we have some new characters, some new important people of importance. We have...
These are all people on the traditionally protagonist side.
Yes.
Nobody
knew on the other side.
OAS.
We've got Commissaire Jean Ducret, who is the head of CDG's personal security corps, so he's responsible for keeping CDG alive. We've got Roger Frey, real dude, Minister of the Interior, and I think later president.
Really?
And we've got Alexander Sanguinet, also real dude, Secretary General under Roger Frey, and also got higher up into politics as well. Both real dudes. And then we have Commissaire Claude Lebel, who is clearly not a real dude, and who I assume we're going to follow for some time as the next section is called The Manhunt.
When you say you assume, you do take into account that you've read the book.
I have read the book. I don't remember. I really don't remember.
Okay.
I have we'll get to it. I have one or two very distinct memories of this book, and we haven't gotten to any of them yet. I know. I didn't even remember that he killed the forger. I didn't even remember that part happened. I think I must have assumed someone's going to, because he's got to set examples, That's how you know he's a serious guy.
Well, it also goes back to our theme of competent men doing competent things. And you see this a lot in the book. There's the competent people, even on the protagonist side, who are like, oh, look at these dum-dums who just go home at the end of their shift. I wish I could be like them sometimes, but I've got a higher purpose because I'm a competent man.
How do you put, when we talk about competent men, how do you put that with the 5 men that tried to take down Kowalski?
Yeah, they are... Kowalski's interesting because he is competent in fighting, but competent in
he puts down some hands. So I have a comment on that here, because when Kowalski is trying to get back to France, he talks a lot about liking to watch airplanes on page 140.
Yeah,
and
like
really
he
gets
wanted
into
to be
it.
Maybe a airport guy.
Do you think he's on the spectrum? Like in today's world, is he like, and on the part where it's like a complete learning disability, not I'm a television idiot savant that is often portrayed, but like he's like, I really like airplanes. Don't know how they work, but I like to watch them go up and down, which is kind of what he says.
You don't have to have a high IQ to like airplanes, though.
No, but that's my point. But I think, but that plays into the autism spectrum, which is just like obsessive over like, trains is a huge one, but I imagine planes is also a very similar.
Yeah,
one.
he
Anyways,
could be.
it's just
It could be.
random comment.
The author goes into great pains to give him a sympathetic backstory and also call him a stone cold moron.
Yeah. He often
Sort of undercutting the whole thing there.
When he's yelling at that Italian or the Roman porter, because he says there's a letter for Kowalski and he has to not let on that he's Kowalski. I have that I have a long list of vocab, and his was je vais demander, which is I will ask. He's basically saying I'll go up and ask somebody upstairs if they know who this is, because he obviously doesn't want the porter to know that he's Kowalski, the guy that they're looking for. A couple other fun ones I have in there is flics, which are French police officers. It's like slang for French police officers. For a while, they call Kowalski's like early army buddies call him Petit Bonhomme, which is kind of like, hey, little guy.
Oh,
So
like
he's
a
little guy.
Little John.
Yeah, but I think also that was before they realized he kills people. I loved the term clouded, which is a British term, which it sounds exactly like what it was used as, which is hit hard with a hand or object. I think that's all I had for the pieces of my vocab related to Kowalski. There's some more vocab later. But before we get there, when he's talking about inspecting the gun, that was super dad porn for like an entire page. Where he's threading things into other things and looking at things. And
you were reading this and you were visualizing the whole thing, weren't you?
Oh yeah.
I sort of glazed out for a little
you
bit.
were like, he is
right,
doing mechanic stuff, putting.
Yeah, I get it. He's making the gun a little bit.
You
better.
went Kowalski on that one.
He started with the gun. He got a screwdriver, and now the gun's slightly better. Who gives a shit?
I forgot to do the back research on this, and I wanted to. I wanted to see what the history of the neck snap is in media, because that's how he kills the forger.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this can't be the first time that someone's put it in something, but 64, it might be like early action movie. One of the first times you see somebody do the pop and twist.
I don't know. I was gonna say that has probably been done a bunch, but
yeah, I mean, I assume so, but I just like how were action movies in the 60s huge? Yeah, because there's a lot of kung fu. Probably a long history of kung fu in there. Anyways, I thought it'd be interesting to see how far back neck snaps goes. But that was very cliche and fun to have him break that dude's neck. He goes out to test the gun in Bastogne, which apparently is where the Battle of Bulge was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big deal. That town was such a big deal because all the roads of the Ardennes forest go through it, so there's no way to get anywhere else without going through that. Do you want to get into the Battle of Bulge? You probably know more about it than I do. I read about it a tiny bit.
No, I didn't feel like there was much to sink into in this section.
No, I was just interested in Bastogne because it's a very interesting city, and the Battle of Bulge is pretty interesting just because the Americans, while outnumbered, held off the Germans for a long time there.
My granddad was in the Battle of the Bulge.
101. Oh,
so I know that.
That's very interesting. But yeah, interesting little town out in the middle of nowhere. Page 131, he chucks those paint cans, and I was like, what a little litter bug. Why do we got to do that?
Well,
he was kind of hucking stuff all over the place.
It's the 70s. You could huck anything anywhere.
You could huck paint in the woods. It's all good.
Yeah, we didn't have this. We weren't recycling. We weren't composting. We didn't give a shit. I
love the use of the word verisimilitude, or the appearance of being real at some point. I have a question for you because I know this answer, but what do you think the gun guy put together for him? Like, he's hiding all these gun parts and tubes and stuff. What do you think that comes together as?
I'm feeling like Sandra Bullock here.
So there's a whole scene where where you probably glazed over this.
This is the thing that wasn't quite ready.
Yep, it was what wasn't ready, and he goes back. He takes apart the gun, and he puts pieces of it into other pieces of it, and he puts it together into a thing, and they don't tell you what it is. I know what it is because I've read the book, but I was just curious if you maybe have an idea. It's basically what he's going to use to hide the gun to get it somewhere.
No.
Okay.
I just assumed it was like a suitcase or some equivalent.
He had that before. He called it an etui, which is like a small ornamental case. But he gave that.
You're saying it transforms into something.
It does.
Like
so
like a guitar. Or
when he first picks up the gun, he puts it in this case, and he takes that case out to the woods, and he shoots stuff. He blows that melon up with the mercury bullet, and then when he goes back, the guy had finished this tube construction with a pad on it, and he puts all the things into this. He puts
the bullets in there.
Puts the bullets in the pad, and he puts all the pieces of the gun into the different tubes, and it assembles into something. And then he gives the case back to the guy. He's like, I don't need this anymore. The gun's going to stay in here till I use it.
No, I don't have a...
Cool. Anyways, it'll be a fun moment later.
Okay.
Some more vocab. Baz, which he uses to like silence stuff when he's putting in the tubes. They mention Baz. It's like the green felt that they put on pool tables. I thought that was cool. Oggi is an Italian weekly newspaper. Still around. Been around since like the 20s. Jebel is like a mountain range. They talk about that in
the book.
Where Kowalski was serving. Yeah, in the book. They talk about it in this book. Some more money things. 1,600 pounds that he pays for the gun is about 40,600 pounds, or almost $52,000 today. So that's what he paid for the gun and the construction. And being a consummate professional, the gunsmith did not try and blackmail him.
No.
And he got to live.
No, and on the competency rankings, he is just below the Jackal because he did need more time.
He did need a little bit more time to finish the thing.
Luckily, the Jackal could allot him that time because, again, he is number 1 on the competency rankings.
Sticking plaster, which obviously makes sense. It's just a bandage. Guichette is a counter, like the ticket office at some point he uses. Jalousie is like the wooden window slats. And he was talking about that because it was super hot in France. And so it's like the old windows that have like vents that pop open and close on them. I thought that was kind of cool. The cabbie tells Kowalski si que voulez, which is kind of like if you want idiot. It's kind of like it's as you wish, or if you'd like, but it's kind of like, if you want to walk in this heat, like, go ahead. Cone, C-O-N-S, is like, it's kind of like bloody idiot, or like it's kind of a cuss word for like, it's similar to mad, but it's like bloody motherfucker, basically. Jailer was spelled with a G in there. I don't know if you noticed that. I thought that was funny when I looked it up. I was like, what word is that?
Is
and
it,
it was just
is it
jailer. It's
G-A-E?
Gaoler.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that in old English style books.
And then the part that made me laugh towards the end was they're talking about the security guards for CDG. And they say that with those guns, they could pick out an ace of spades at 20 paces.
Pick out the ace of the ace of spades.
Yeah.
It's not a magic trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't seem that difficult.
Well, to me, what I immediately thought of is like what we've learned, especially in the last couple of years, how bad security is. Like with the Social Security incidents or not Social Security, with the Social Security, with the Secret Service.
That's our other podcast.
that's a whole nother thing we want to talk about. No, with the Secret Service, and like I just wonder, like there's this competency in media and books about police and detectives and spies, and I just wonder if it's one of those things where like you get out into the real world and you're like, actually most people are pretty bad at their jobs.
The Secret Service
I
killed
work with a
JFK.
lot of idiots. Yeah.
Case in point.
That's a third podcast we'll be getting into later.
I have a
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Plot related.
Mm-hmm.
We finally get to our protagonist side of the house.
Yep. Let's find this guy.
Let's go find this guy and ideally stop him.
I think that's what they're trying to do.
Best case
Well, I
scenario.
believe that they say erase him or remove him.
Remove him. Let's get him. And they're trying to figure out exactly how they're going to go about doing that because we don't know who he is. We don't know what he looks like. We don't know his name. And the book kind of treats this as like the biggest invention in terrorism ever.
Right?
First of all.
That was interesting. They didn't go. They immediately see this as the hugest threat possible.
Yeah, it didn't seem like that novel of an idea.
I think the reasoning behind that is because, and they kind of mention that, is just that they don't know where to start. Right?
Okay, so I'm going to go directly to number 2.
Yeah.
They've got counterintelligence and people going.
If
If
Rodin was able
going
to
off of
find
a
him,
list,
he found a couple people.
don't they have a list that's better?
You would assume so.
How about we just start with who are good assassins,
And
let's cross-reference that with
one
who has
that's referred
blonde
to
hair.
as the Englishman.
Yeah, and then let's sort of check some off from there. Let's put a little watch on the ones that we have left. It can't be that difficult.
I don't disagree.
So maybe that was sort of at the end of part 1. Maybe they clear that up in part 2. But I'm like, well, why don't you find the guy the same way Rodin found his guy?
I assume
know.
we're going to get into that, especially now that we've got the best detective.
Sure,
Claude
he's gonna think of
LaBelle.
that.
He's the best.
If that's his idea, then
I mean,
I'm the best detective.
they do call him the best detective. They do say the best detective in France
Who are your favorite
is my
detectives?
own deputy, Commissaire Claude LaBelle. Well, the Pink Panther, obviously.
Sure.
Not a detective, famously. I don't know if I know detectives.
Well, Sherlock Holmes. You know
Sherlock Holmes. But is he actually a detective, or is he basically a private investigator? Because he doesn't have a badge.
Yeah, I guess
does
he's a
he?
private investigator. Yeah, yeah.
He just works with the department a lot.
Officer McNulty, he's pretty good.
I'm trying to think of Monk. I don't know if I know detectives.
Monk. Yeah, Monk's really good.
What's the one in? I'm just thinking of all the USA shows. Psych, wasn't that one too?
There's
I don't
another
know.
one
I
with
haven't even watched
Caitlin
it.
Olsen. That's like
That's the new one, right?
Yeah, where she's also Monk. She's like the new Monk.
The new monk. A white monk. We appropriated monk.
Wait, was Monk black?
He was played by Tony Shalhoub, so I think he's like, I'm going to look it up because I'm going to get in trouble.
Can I see a picture of Tony Shalhoub?
Yes.
I don't know.
He is
Tony
not
Shalhoub.
black, but he is.
Oh, he's not black. He's an American actor.
He is. But I think he's Italian background, which I guess is pretty much white. Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie. That was 2023. That was just a year ago.
I've never seen any Monk.
I think I've seen pieces of it. I don't think I've seen an entire episode of Monk, but I know it was a big deal. Tony Shalhoub was on Wings. We're off. We're getting off here. IMDb is my favorite thing. I think I only have one other note, which was Casson, which I believe is the treasurer for the OAS, delays them sending the Jackal money, the first $250K.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood why he delayed that. Obviously, it worked in the benefit of the antagonist.
I assume so. I don't know that yet because what they made it sound like is they don't know when he's going to try and kill CDG. And so they wanted to make sure that he didn't try and rush into it by giving him the money. They wanted him to take his time. That's the argument they made. But then it immediately says what they didn't know is that he had already determined when he was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, do you think that this delay will actually cause something later, or is it just a drop plot point like Game of Thrones?
I don't know what it would possibly impact.
Yeah. I mean, my thought was that he might have to like change. Yes, it gives our protags a little bit more time to find him. But I think he'd already kind of picked a day.
Yeah, I think he's already got his.
He's got an idea
sorted.
He knows how far he's gonna have to shoot. He knows where he's gonna shoot him. That's all part of his plan. They also wanted to make sure that he had his contact in Paris, who I assume is that lady who now forced her lover to leave her family and let her move in with him. I don't remember that part of the story at all from when I read this book before. Reading this now, I don't know if I even understood the book very well when I read it the first time.
But isn't that true for any book?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also, I'm probably just, you don't remember all the little details and stuff. But it definitely, I mean, I think I read it in high school. So there's definitely some like political above my head concepts in here that as a high schooler, I was like, Nazis bad, and that's probably about as far as I got.
All of the history of France and Algiers.
I probably didn't understand that at all. I was just like, oh, it's a place that they fought, and didn't even. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I have. Got some other comments?
I think that's all. There wasn't as much to get into in this.
It was pretty straightforward, pretty good, but it was very, he's zip-zapping around Europe, finding out where he's going to shoot, testing out his gun.
This part also, I didn't feel like it was that interesting. So we're going to watch the television show next.
The Jackal's pieces were not as interesting as the detectives, and like the most interesting parts of the story were Kowalski getting tricked to go back to France, and
even that's got some sort of like Mr. Magoo type of energy to it.
Sure. And then, though I think his fight scene was written very well. Mm-hmm. I love that he shoots the dude in the knee.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't well written and it's not enjoyable, but from a plot perspective, this section was
you knew there was never for a moment did you think he was going to get away.
Right.
So there was no gravitas to the fight. And you also didn't know these five guys, so it's not like you felt bad for any of them. You felt a little bad for the guy who's like, you're not going to be a hit guy anymore. The guy.
But
who
maybe
goes
he
to-
wanted a desk job. Maybe
Yeah.
he just had a second baby. You don't know what goes on in people's private lives. It also didn't send me off into any exploratory.
I didn't do.
avenues,
Yeah,
like-
there wasn't a lot of like I need
like
to
the
go
first
find out more
section.
about this.
First section, we've got our setting. We're getting the lay of the land, and then the second section is just sort of, he goes and tests a gun and progresses intermittently forward.
I did find as they were introducing characters on the French side, Charles de Gaulle and his cabinet and the detectives and his security, they did a good job of making the characters full immediately. At the end, they kind of do this round of the table thing. That was pretty short, but the big players that they were introducing, they gave them all time to like let you live in them for a little bit, if that makes sense.
What? Okay. Who are the main ones there?
The main ones.
Give me their names and then their distinguishing characteristic. So then maybe they didn't. Maybe
They talk about Alexander Sanguinet, who was the Secretary General.
What's his distinguishing?
It was Roger Frey was the soft-spoken guy, and they get into that a whole bunch about how he's serious. Alexander Sanguinet spent a lot of time being very worried. And then, I don't know if you remember this part, but Claude Lebel is the best detective.
Quiet, worried, and best detective are not fully fleshed out characters, my friend.
Well, no, but I think, obviously they're not fleshed out. They only got like a page each, but I think he took the time to go through each of them. Now I've got to like go back and read into it. But I felt like he took time with each character, and I was like each character got a page or two where you were in their head and they were figuring stuff out. It wasn't just like detective guy does detective stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little bit more of a blank canvas.
Yeah, but I think we're going to get into that as we get into Manhunt, the second part, Anatomy of a Manhunt.
Sure.
Part two.
Part 2 of the book,
Part
yes.
two.
So in a book club,
Yes.
if you are in a book club and they have printouts,
Yep.
the printouts might ask you about motifs or themes. Let's start there. Are you picking up on any motifs and or themes?
Define motif.
Let me get my fucking phone out. Motif is just a thing that keeps repeating, a symbol that continues to repeat.
Okay. It's not a decorative designer pattern. Just kidding. A distinctive feature or dominant idea in an artistic or literary composition. Well, we talked about dad porn. Dad porn is constant. People good at their job is constant.
Competency is
Competency,
the one that I pulled out.
Even Kowalski being an idiot, they're like, it's very clear that he has a job and it's a distinct job.
He is competent at his job.
Yeah.
Where he fucked up was he went outside of job.
He went. Yeah, he did. And he even said it will be out of character for me to do what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
And which is very important to his backstory when they talk about this kid, is they make it very clear that there are very few things that would make him do dumb thing within his job, but this kid of his is the Sylvie, I believe.
The one he's met
Twice. Yep. But
But that's fine. I mean, no.
blood of my blood and whatnot.
Sure. That one magical night.
I think another motif is your boss making things hard on you. With the seed, they bring that up constantly with Charles de Gaulle, that he doesn't want his privacy disturbed. He doesn't want his normal life disturbed. There's a lot of that. Motifs. They do a lot of discussions to tell you the motivation of our antagonists constantly.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting back to what I was saying.
But that's what's interesting, because I was talking about how they have like at least the introductions are fleshed out with our protagonist characters, but I will say that their motivation, they do not take time to discuss their motivations.
It is a fiction book written as a nonfiction book.
Yeah.
And
But-
that continues to be the case. There was nothing in section 2 that is taking me away from that point of view.
Yeah, but everyone in the OAS that they've talked about so far, they do a very good job of talking about every one of them. They do their
We
background,
get a little backstory.
and then they tell you, like, almost every single one of them talks about when they get quote unquote radicalized.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like each one of them has a moment where they go, "This is bullshit," in their mind. But there's none of that for the protagonist side, where they go, and I pushed hard to be the best detective because of this moment.
What was the moment you were radicalized?
About what?
Your choice.
That's like the Twitter conversation. What radicalized you about healthcare? I don't know. The first time I had to pay a deductible on top of what I pay every month. I don't think I have been radicalized. If I was radicalized, I think I would be the one in a New York prison right now.
A challenge to all of our listeners.
When were you radicalized?
Radicalized Dustin.
Radicalize me? I think my form of radicalization is like leaving. It's like quitting. Like I'm a shut down person.
Yeah, safer that way.
Especially if it's me, right? I might change if it's like my wife. I'm being radicalized, because then I might fight for that, if that makes sense. But myself, I'll probably just be like, time to pick up smoking again.
That could be fun.
It could be fun for some of us. Next section is all about the manhunt, I assume, because it's called Anatomy of a Manhunt. I figured we'd read up to chapter 16.
Why did you pick that one? Do you have a specific reason, or?
It was just a good breaking point to give us enough.
Okay.
The last section, which is called Anatomy of a Kill.
Oh, there's a third section?
There's a third section, but it's way shorter than Anatomy of a Manhunt.
Okay.
So I didn't want the next time to be, let's talk about 150 pages and then talk about 50 pages.
Yeah, you said
We'll talk about 100 and then we'll talk about another
You said
100.
16?
Basically. Yeah. So we'll finish 15.
Okay. Deal.
And then we'll finish it all out. And then we'll start watching the show. And then we'll watch a movie. And then we'll watch another movie.
You're gonna be jackaled up.
They hunt packs, right?
They hunt in packs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't hunt packs?
No.
Like packs of Pokemon cards. They're not out there looking for the shinies. All right. That's a sign for I've got nothing else to
the
talk
spot.
about. We did it.